In 1972, a gallon of gasoline cost about 36 cents. By 1980, that same gallon cost about $1.22, more than 3 times the money in 8 years. Nothing about the gasoline had changed. What changed was the dollar. This is the story of the 1970s, the decade American money came apart. The honest way to tell it is not through headlines or presidents or grand theories. It is through a household budget ledger. One paycheck, one family of 4, in a suburb like 1,000 others. The father earned the wage. The mother kept the book, a spiral notebook where she wrote down what everything cost, month after month, and slowly watched the numbers stop adding up. This family is a composite. I built them from the government's own records, the Bureau of Labor Statistics family budget and its average prices, the Census Bureau's median income. Not a word of their arithmetic is invented. And by the end of the decade, $1 this family had saved in 1970 would buy barely half of what it once did. Here is exactly how that happened, line by line, and what they did to survive it. It began on a Sunday night. On August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon went on television. It was a short address that preempted the Western bonanza, and in about 15 minutes, he changed what $1 was. He did 3 things. First, he closed what was called the gold window. From that night, foreign governments could no longer trade their United States dollars for gold at the fixed rate of $35 an ounce. That international rate had held since 1944, when 44 nations met at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, and agreed to anchor the world's money to a dollar that was itself anchored to gold. Nixon cut the anchor. The dollar became, for the first time, backed by nothing but trust. Second, he put a 10% surcharge on imports. Third, the one this family felt at the kitchen table, he froze wages and prices. Executive Order 11615. For 90 days, no price, no rent, and no wage in America could rise above its recent level on penalty of a fine of up to $5,000. It sounds like relief. But read the fine print, and you find the whole tragedy of the decade in miniature. The freeze carried one exemption: raw agricultural products. So the father's paycheck was frozen, but the price of the family's dinner was not. I think that single clause did more quiet damage than anything else in the story. It held down the money coming in and let the cost of eating keep climbing. The freeze was only the first phase. A cost of living council, first chaired by Treasury Secretary John Connally, spent the next 3 years running controls that loosened, then tightened, then finally expired in April of 1974. That first December, Nixon gathered the finance ministers of the world's biggest economies at the Smithsonian and cut the dollar again from $35 to $38 an ounce of gold, about an 8% devaluation. He called it the most significant monetary agreement in the history of the world. It lasted about 15 months. By early 1973, the dollar was cut once more, toward $42 an ounce, and then the currencies of the world were simply set loose to float. Bretton Woods was finished, and behind all of it, the money supply itself, the sheer number of dollars in the system, grew about 2.5 times across the decade. More dollars chasing the same goods is the oldest definition of inflation there is. So open the ledger and watch what that loosened dollar did to a single family's month. Start at the top. Gasoline, about 36 cents a gallon in 1972. About $1.22 by 1980. Ground beef, roughly 65 cents a pound in 1970. By 1980, ground chuck averaged about $1.83. A loaf of bread ran about a quarter at the start of the decade, and about 50 cents a pound by the end. Eggs went from about 61 cents a dozen to about 84. Milk reached about $1 for a half gallon, and the postage stamp on the electric bill climbed the whole way from 8 cents in 1971 to 20 cents by the close of 1981. Now here is the part the ledger reveals that a headline never could. The prices did not all move together. Gasoline more than tripled. Beef and the roof over their heads came close behind, nearly triple. Bread roughly doubled, and the postage stamp did a little more. But eggs rose only about a third. Everything got expensive is not what happened. What happened is that the essentials which eat a paycheck first, fuel, meat, and housing, ran away fastest, while a few staples lagged behind. That unevenness is exactly why it felt like drowning. The biggest lines on the page were the ones rising hardest. And the paycheck? The paycheck doubled too. The median American family earned about $9,900 in 1970 and about $21,000 by 1980. On paper, that looks like a decade of raises. It was not. Prices had doubled right alongside the wage. The Consumer Price Index roughly doubled over the 10 years. So in real spendable terms, this family was running as hard as it could just to stand still. The doubling of the paycheck was not prosperity. It was inflation wearing a paycheck's clothes. Then in the autumn of 1973, the decade got worse in a matter of weeks. On October 19th, in retaliation for American support of Israel in the Yom Kippur War, the Arab members of OPEC, acting as the group known as OAPEC, cut off oil to the United States. The posted price of crude roughly quadrupled, from about $3 a barrel to nearly $12, though price controls kept American oil cheaper than the world's. At the corner station, the family met the shortage face to face. Gas lines around the block, odd and even license plates allowed to fill up on alternate days, and stations flying green, yellow, or red flags to signal whether they had any fuel at all. By late February of 1974, by the American Automobile Association's count, about a fifth of the nation's gas stations had none to sell. Nixon signed a national 55-mile-an-hour speed limit just to save fuel. This is the moment the family stops being a victim of the ledger and starts fighting back through it. That same year, the week of April 1st, 1973, hundreds of thousands of American housewives had already declared war on their own grocery bills. It was the meat boycott. It grew out of small local consumer groups across the country, most of them led by women. The largest of them, a group called Fight Inflation Together, coordinated a nationwide week without meat to break a beef price that had been climbing several percent in a single month. Under the pressure, Nixon set a ceiling on the price of beef, pork, and lamb. Here is what I find remarkable and a little heartbreaking. It did not work. The boycott and the ceiling together did not durably lower a single price. Worse, the ceiling helped cause a beef shortage. Ranchers held their cattle back rather than sell at a loss, and the cost of food kept right on climbing. The price of food rose about 14.5% in 1973, and another 14% in 1974. The households were right about the problem. They were simply too small to fix it alone. Washington's next idea was smaller still. In October of 1974, the new president, Gerald Ford, stood before Congress, called inflation public enemy number one, and asked Americans to fight it with a lapel button. Whip inflation now. The government printed millions of the little red and white pins and urged families to spend less, save more, and plant gardens. Within months, it was a national joke. Skeptics wore the buttons upside down, so they read NIM, no immediate miracles. I think whip inflation now is the clearest lesson in the whole decade. It was psychological policy aimed at a structural problem. You cannot ask a household to volunteer its way out of a broken dollar. What finally broke the fever was brutal, and it landed squarely on this family's largest dream. In 1979, Paul Volcker took over the Federal Reserve, and to strangle inflation, he pushed interest rates to heights no one had seen. Over the next 2 years, the federal funds rate climbed toward 20%. The mortgage followed. The 30-year home loan, which had cost around 7 or 8% at the decade's start, reached 18.63% in October of 1981, the highest rate in the history of Freddie Mac's records. Put that in the ledger, and the trap becomes visible. The median new house had gone from about $23,000 in 1970 to nearly $69,000 by 1981, nearly triple, while the interest rate on it more than doubled. Take one worked example just to show the shape of it. Borrow about $55,000 at 18%, and the monthly principal and interest alone comes to roughly $830 before a single dollar of taxes or insurance. That same loan at the early 70s rate would have run closer to $400. The price of the house and the price of the money both nearly doubled at once. That is what locked a generation out, and breaking it cost a hard recession. From the summer of 1981 into late 1982, unemployment climbed toward 11%, but it worked. Inflation, which had peaked at 13.5% for the year 1980, was back near 6% by the end of 1982. So closed the notebook and read the bottom line. The gallon of gas that started the decade at 36 cents ended it near $1.22. Across 10 years, this family's dollar lost more than half of its purchasing power. No one handed them a secret? There was no trick and no system that beat the market. What they had was the ledger itself, the discipline of writing down what everything cost, watching which lines were running away, and quietly moving the household around them. Trading the good cut of beef for the cheaper one. Driving a little less. Stretching the loaf and the stamp. Holding the line wherever they still could. If you have felt a grocery receipt lately that does not match your memory of last year, if the cost of living has outrun the number on your own paycheck, then you already know what this family felt at that kitchen table. The decade they lived through has a name among economists. They call it the Great Inflation, the worst sustained peacetime inflation in modern American history. And ordinary households walked through every month of it, not with a miracle, with a notebook and the nerve to look at it honestly. That is the whole story, top to bottom, in one family's ledger. If you want to watch the next crisis decoded the same way, line by line, in the numbers people actually lived, this is When Money Broke.